and it is 2020 regional champion, 2019 regional champion, EUIC 2019 top 8, and a top 8 at Latin America Internationals in 2018. Brent has been one of the most consistent players from the Oceania region ever since we've really just been keeping track of these stats.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as we've been having international championships, it seems like we've seen Brent's name in day 2 of most of these tournaments, as we see a couple of top 8s there as well. And over on Owen's side, we actually see a blank slate, which is something I really love to see from these Players' Cup tournaments. And this is kind of just something you get from online tournaments. Maybe some of these players that don't have the opportunity to travel very far to regional championships, travel very far to international championships, have an opportunity to make a name for themselves in these online events, such as Players' Cup 1 and Players' Cup 2.
Yeah, it's a good old David versus Goliath story here, and we're gonna have to see if Owen can pull together some unique options here with the deck that they're playing against in this matchup.
Well, it's going to be a battle of the Pikachus. How fitting, right, with the series mascot in our first game that you and I are going to be casting today. We're going to go ahead and kick it down to the gameplay and see how this is going to shape up, coming down initially to the ever-important coin flip here.
Yeah, and it looks like Brent will be going first here. So big starting hand does have a mulligan. So you said going first was so important in this matchup, especially with the crushing hammers and the ability to kind of steal some turns from your energy attachments. How important is it for Brent going up against the Mewtwo variation of this deck?
It's actually kind of close. I think Pikachu Zekrom, one of the reasons we've seen it have so much success is because it's one of these decks that really doesn't necessarily mind if it goes first or second, right? If you go first, you get the turn 1 attachment, and then you can pull off some plays with Tapu Koko Prism Star in order to try to get a turn 2 full blitz. But if you go second, you're able to get off the Electrify with Boltund V, which can accelerate a ton of extra energy into play for you. And even though Owen is going second here, we'll have to see if that is something that he can pull off, getting the Boltund V into the active spot with a lightning energy on it to electrify.
Yeah, well, Brent did start their turn off with a speed lightning energy to the active Pikachu and Zekrom GX, big charm, and then a Tapu Koko Prism on the bench. Nothing really of note other than that. Does have quite a few supporters in hand for next turn. So Owen now will need to try to get a little bit of a faster start here, just because seeing that Tapu Koko Prism come down, well, they have access to it already. It's not very much they need to find to actually get a turn 2 attack off.
Absolutely. So Owen here taking their time with this Cherish Ball. Cherish Ball is a great card for these Mewtwo and Mew decks. It lets you get out any of these GX Pokemon that you might be playing, as well as your Mewtwo and Mews. Also, of course, things like Pikachu, Zekrom, Raichu, just so many different targets. And we see right away that Vileplume GX being discarded. And I think this is one of the key cards, not necessarily just in this matchup, but just for this deck in general. For 2 energy with a grass and a colorless, Massive Bloom deals 180 damage and then 10 less damage for each damage counter on that Pokemon. So if you're hitting with a Mewtwo and Mew that doesn't have any damage counters on it, being able to do 180 damage for just 2 energies is incredibly efficient and a great way to finish off some of these bench-sitting Pokemon we very commonly see, like the Dene GX and Crobat V.
Yeah, especially when you're just a deck in general that relies on 3 energy attacks for the most part in Full Blitz and Tandem Shock the like. So having the option for the quick 2-hit attack could surprise a lot of opponents, especially with a lot of these Pikachu and Zekrom GX decks playing Mewtwo in general.
Owen here playing down a Cherish Ball. They've gotten the energy on to the Boltund V. Did have to use one of those Aurora energies. That is a little unfortunate. You really want those to be used on Mewtwo and Mew, since that's where you get the best value from it, being able to provide all of those different energy types, right? You can copy, of course, Massive Bloom from Vileplume. You can copy Mist Slash with Greninja GX. Lots of different options there. But still, as long as Owen can find a switch card on this turn, an Electrify would be huge. And getting down both Pikachu, Zekrom, and Raichu and Alolan Raichu, both of those 2 tag team Pokemon, means that this Mewtwo could copy either of those attacks. But no, that is a whiff of the switch card.
Yeah, they dug through the entire deck basically to try to find a switch, and he could not find it. And Marnie kind of disrupted Brent a little bit, but off the speed lightning energy to electromagnetic radar, which is exactly what Brent is looking for a second turn here, to be able to detonate GX and try to get out of this hand.
I think, Brent with this attachment to the active, it is still a little hard to attack this turn. You need to find a lightning energy, a way to discard it, and then also one of your energy switch in order to move that energy from the bench up to the active. Brent does play a pretty high count 3 energy switch, but I think maybe discarding the energy could be the key piece here.
Yeah, well, I think that was a heads on the Crushing Hammer, getting rid of that Aurora energy. And now with no energy in play, it's going to be pretty hard for Owen to kind of cobble together a turn after missing that switch.
Well, let's see what Brent draws here off these 6 cards from Dedenne. There's the lightning, there's the energy switch, and the quick ball to discard that lightning energy. That is the exact combo of cards Brent needed to find here.
Yeah, this is great news for Brent. Gonna be able to pull off the turn 2 attack here thanks to that combination of energy switch and Dance of the Ancients. And now this is what the original Pikachu and Zekrom deck likes to see here. Just good old turn 2 full blitz.
Oh, there we go. He did actually have another lightning energy already in the discard pile, so that works out great. Is able to get full effect out of that Dance of the Ancients, and a turn 2 full blitz for Brent Tonnisson. We'll see where these lightning energies go. I would assume, yep, to that Raichu and Raichu.
Yeah, even has the extra energy on that Boltund V on the bench. This is pretty much the perfect start, you can say, for Brent here outside of their hand. Oh.
And it's just going to be an attach plus a Marnie, so goodbye to that hand that Brent was holding on to. Boss's Orders would have been really strong for Brent on the next turn. But Owen here, still looking for that switch, is finally able to find one, and we will see the Electrify come out. A much slower start on Owen's side. We'll see how Brent can capitalize. It doesn't have a Boss's Orders. I think that would be a huge card for Brent to find here.
Yeah, and we see Owen charging up that Raichu and Raichu GX. Probably the best threat that you have right now, but another Crushing Hammerheads for Brent here, and it just puts them ahead even more. We're going to see a big Bolt Storm here for the knockout if they could find an energy, but I don't see an energy.
No energy yet. You could try to... Oh my goodness, that's a third heads! 3 heads with the Crushing Hammer. That is brutal for Owen. You had a miss of your Electrify on turn 1, and then your opponent hits 3 heads to remove those 3 energies. Brent is definitely in a commanding spot. Can still draw some cards to find that, that energy for turn, but not wanting to burn these switch.
Well, does find the Speed Lightning, which is the best energy you can find here, honestly. Just gets you more cards in hand. And here we see the Bolt Storm for the knockout. And Brent is in full control this game 1 here.
Yeah, Brent is in an absolutely dominant position here. Could have played those 2 switches in order to draw extra cards with Crobat, but I think wisely decides to hold on to those. Brent is well aware that... Tandem Shock from Raichu and Alolan Raichu is a real threat from Owen, being able to paralyze whatever Pokemon Brent is attacking with at that given time. So having those switch outs is very key. And just like that, Owen, in 2 turns, starting turn number 3, has 0 energies in play.
Yeah, and you look at it, you see Pikachu and Zekrom GX. The deck is known for getting off full blitz pretty fast, But... with all the addition of the Mew and Mewtwo GX, it really kind of adds the extra stuff that you would have the room for in energy switches and stuff to actually accelerate a fast attack. Here in Owen's list, there is no energy switch at all.
Right, so you trade a little bit of consistency for a little extra power. Of course, Mewtwo is able to copy some of those attacks that you wouldn't have access to if you were just playing a regular Pikachu Zekrom deck. Things like Naganadel GX, of course, and the Vileplume GX that we mentioned earlier, but at the cost of sacrificing a little bit of consistency. And this is a pretty solid position for Brent. It's going to be really hard for Owen to make anything happen.
Yeah, these Boltund V are dealing massive amounts of damage, almost enough to take down some VMAX Pokemon with a few more energies. And off of the prizes, those are the last couple energies you need to take down pretty much anything in the format.
As of now, Brent just has the game in hand. Boss's Orders will be able to clean up either this heavily damaged Mewtwo on the bench or this Dedenne if it moves back to the bench this turn. And Owen does have the chance to attack this turn. We could see a Tandem Shock here if Owen's able to find that their own Tapu Koko Prism Star, get their own Dance of the Ancients off, and then, of course, finding a way to move this Dedenne. So Brent would need the switch to combat that, but I think Owen here definitely looking for the second reset stamp that they play in their list.
Yeah, but I don't think that Owen has it in the cards here. The 6 cards finds a Marnie, so still needing to look for quite a few cards out of these 5. The Tapu Koko Prism, a way to get out of the active spot, and preferably that reset stamp.
Absolutely.
Ooh.
Marnie at least lets you disrupt your opponent somewhat, not quite the strength in this position that reset stamp might provide. And oh no, that's just a retreat, and it's just gonna have to be a pass here.
Yeah, that's not good. The Bolt Storm is doing enough damage to take the knockout here in the first place. So there you have it. Brent is able to take game 1 pretty convincingly off the back of 3 heads from Crushing Hammer.
Crushing Hammer, very strong card for sure. I think something that is very, very popular right now in the standard format for the Pokemon TCG. And Brent just kind of showed us why in that game. Being able to set your opponent back and capitalize on your quick starts and just keep pushing your advantage, Brent was able to run away with that game, honestly. Owen, once those Crushing Hammers came out, I don't think stood a chance.
Yeah, you basically just stole games from Owen there, or stole turns from Owen there. Didn't really have much they could do, and knowing the list, knowing there's no energy switch, there's not a possibility for them to get a 3 energy attack off in the few turns. You were kind of just, okay, I'm gonna get set up. Okay, I have all my energy in play. Knockout, knockout, knockout. Let's go to game 2.
Bolt Storm can definitely just build up to incredibly high damage very, very quickly. But that was just game 1. We do still have another chance. Owen is hoping for a few tails, I think, here in game number 2. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this second game and see if Owen can get a little bit better of a start. I think also if Owen had gotten that switch on turn 1, that could have been a huge difference in that game for sure.
Yeah, well, being able to actually get the Electrify off a turn earlier means just 2 extra energy in play, and it could have been a completely different game. So, like you said, we'll have to see if Owen is able to bring it back, but Brent has the same game plan as always. It's to Crushing Hammer, and then Full Blitz, and then start racking up the damage.
Oh, this is a bad hand here from Brent.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the radar, so it's not the worst, I guess I should say, but, you know, a little bit awkward to navigate. Speed Lightning also lets you draw some cards. We do see here, actually, Owen did choose to go second and goes ahead and starts that Boltund V, making things a lot easier for them in this second game, choosing to go second.
Yeah, and honestly, I think going first actually helps Brent's hand out here more than it would have going second. Have the option of actually just attaching the Speed Lightning, and then depending on what he draws could go from there. But yeah, already has 2 Lightning Energy in the discard, has that Tapu Koko Prism in the deck. So you have your game plan, you just can't run out of energies.
Yeah, so a opening hand that looked a little awkward actually turns into a pretty solid one here. I wonder if we'll see Brent use this Dedenne or not. I kind of feel like you're okay holding the hand so that way you can get the guaranteed attachment next turn, and then all you need to find is the Quick Ball. You do have a switch in hand as well, so you might not necessarily want to burn that. So it looks like Brent is debating here and leaning towards just a pass.
Yeah, well, I think that is mostly because of the 2 discarded basic energies. You have less of a chance to hit it off of the draws next turns if you discard this one here. And then also having access to, if you top deck that Quick Ball, you have everything in your hand pretty much to get that turn 1 full or turn 2 Full Blitz off.
We will see Owen already in a better spot, does get the Boltund and the Electrify, but does not play a draw supporter. So maybe I spoke a little too soon. You'll at least get these energies in play thanks to the Boltund V, but not advancing your hand at all. Not a great spot to be in necessarily.
Yeah, this is not looking too good for turn 1, but it's still a lot better than turn 1 from game 1, where Owen just burned through a lot of cards and resources and didn't end up with the switch. And here we see the kind of bad decision of not playing the Dedenne turn 1, drawing into a second switch card here when you're kind of hoping to draw into it later on.
Yeah, definitely a little awkward of a top deck. You need that switch after you use Dance of the Ancients to get that extra energy. We see another heads on Crushing Hammer. Absolutely brutal there from Brent. Just no mercy at all, keeping the pressure on, and has a Marnie in hand as well. So Owen might not have played a lot of cards last turn, but now they'll have even less cards to work with on turn number 2. And we'll see here if Brent finds the switch card. It does not look like they were able to.
Well, does not find a switch, but finds a switch card in Energy Switch, which will be able to actually get the attack off here because of the 2 energy in the discard. So Dance in the Ancients gets back those 2 energy. You energy switch the extra to the active. That allows you to retreat, and now your full blitz comes into play.
Great spot here for Brent. Full Blitz is going to have 6 energies in play here at the end of this turn. Ooh, even eyeing up a Tag Bolt maybe. Wants to go just extra aggressive. And I kind of like this. You know that this Raichu and Raichu cannot realistically attack this turn. Your opponent would need multiple switch cards, their Tapu Koko, and, you know, the extra energy, stuff like that. And you just gave them 4 cards off of Marnie. I like this aggressive play.
Yeah, fully playing off the fact of the deck list not having Energy Switch, I think. Just the fact that your opponent has such a hard time attacking without this energy acceleration. So if you take it out, you kind of just give yourself a quick advantage.
It does make things a little, you know, awkward for Brent with taking your prizes. I think sometimes in this matchup you like just trying to knock out 2 of these tag team Pokemon. What can happen now is, since you've taken 2 prizes, knocking out a Boltund V, if you do take a knockout on a tag team Pokemon, then your opponent can have an opportunity to paralyze you with Tandem Shock plus reset stamp you to 1 all in one single turn.
Yeah, but as of right now, I don't think Owen's anywhere close to kind of doing that just yet. Has the air balloon to save that Raichu and Alolan Raichu on the bench for now, but we see a boss's orders in hand for Brent. Could that bring up that Raichu and start laying down the damage on it?
Yeah, I think I really do kind of like that. Bring it up. It makes it so your opponent has to find a switch card in order to get off the Tandem Shock for the full paralysis this turn. You go ahead and get damage on the Pokemon that is definitely the most threatening. And then, of course, with Full Blitz, you'll be able to accelerate extra energies into play. And then since you have the energy in hand, you can go ahead and get that attachment to a Boltund V.
Well, here we see the Quick Ball. Gets that extra Boltund V, really just thinning out the deck for this Marnie. You don't really want to draw into the Quick Ball anymore. I know there's 1 Dedenne GX left, but you're sitting pretty right now. And those 5 cards off the Marnie are not too bad at all.
Yeah, so choosing to Marnie as opposed to Boss's Orders, this play also makes a lot of sense. You know, if you commit to knocking out this Vikavolt V, then you can knock out something like a Dedenne or Crobat later on to close out the game and just kind of ignore these tag teams. And that way you also don't ever run the risk of getting stamped to 1.
All right, well, Owen needs to figure out something here. Most likely hand disruption and Tandem Shock, the good old classic desperation Pikachu and Zekrom play, trying to get back into the game here.
Yeah, if there's anything we've learned from watching Pikachu and Zekrom over the last year and a half or so, it's that it really never is out of the game. Paralyzation is definitely the strongest status condition in the game, being able to make it so your opponent can't even attack, forcing them to play a switch card. You know, things like sleep, you at least have the opportunity to wake up. Things like confusion, you at least have the opportunity to try to flip through confusion. With paralysis, you actually have to play the switching card to make that happen. And then, of course, Reset Stamp, just one of the more powerful cards in the game right now.
All right, well, here we see the Quick Ball, gets that Tapu Koko Prism Star, plays it on the bench. Owen then plays that Crobat V, draws up until 6, but they still... Okay, they got the 3rd energy without the Dance in the Ancients, and does not have access to the GX attack quite yet. Just cannot get the 5 energy needed for it.
Yeah, and needs to actually find a switch. Cannot use Air Balloon to retreat this Vikavolt V. It does have a 3 retreat cost, so that does limit your options as far as maneuverability this turn a little bit. We will go ahead and see the Dance of the Ancients, getting that energy onto Boltund, and the Raichu and Raichu building up maybe for a Lightning Ride GX in order to get back in this game.
Yeah, but that might come at a later turn. Does find the switch, though, so step 1 of getting a Tandem Shock off here, and a Boss's Orders, so we could see it on the opposing Raichu and Alolan Raichu, but no hand disruption. We know Brent has a switch in hand, so this switch is going to bring up the Boltund V, and I believe with all the lightning energy in play, that should be enough to take the knockout on that Raichu.
I believe actually just short, dealing right now 250 damage. Raichu and Alolan Raichu having 260 HP. But Boss's Orders says, no worries, we'll bring up this Boltund V. And Brent is still in a position here where their game plan, they're able to still be playing around the reset stamp to just 1 card.
And now you kind of have access to everything in the board, in KO range at least, if you draw another Boss's Orders.
Right, you don't feel like this Boltund V is ever really getting knocked out here. I suppose your opponent could just attach another energy and Lightning Ride GX to knock it out, but if that's the case, your opponent is probably just not feeling like in that great of a position, and anything they're sending up is in risk of being KO'd by a Lightning Ride on Brent's own side. Oh no, Brent did already use their GX attack in order to take the knockout on Boltund V on the second turn of the game.
Yeah, the early Tag Bolt GX. Mm-hmm. All right, Professor's Research from Owen discards the Greninja GX, and now with the energy on the active, that means Lightning Ride GX is not an option this turn for Owen, and we're just going to have to see another Tandem Shock and Pray most likely.
Yeah, it's not an ideal position for Owen, to say the least. Even if you get off the paralysis here, and even if your opponent doesn't find the switch card, they're just still in such a great spot to try to close this game out. And with the Speed Lightning energy in hand, Brent could find the cards they need in order to win the game this turn. There's a Boss's Orders on the top. Now, if Brent can use the Speed Lightning and draw into a switch card, that would just be the game, being able to knock out this Vikavolt V on the bench with either this Pikachu Zekrom or the Raichu and Alolan Raichu.
Oh man, does Brent actually do it though? You could also run the option of just trying to draw into a switch effect.
I think what Brent was maybe paused there for a moment. This tournament is open deck list, maybe just checking some of their opponent's resources. Probably what was taking a moment there. And now just thinking through things, does have the electromagnetic radar in hand, so we could see the hyper aggressive play of Boss's Orders to bring something up, and then Dedenne change with the Dedenne GX in order to dig for that switch card. But as we just saw there in the discard pile, Brent already down 3 switch. That would be a very risky play to go for.
Yeah, having the 2 switch to discard early off on that Dedenne GX has just that 1 left. Could be in the prizes, could not be. And I believe it's in the deck because he actually searched the deck. Mm-hmm. And I think there's still another Dedenne GX left as well.
Let's see, Brent maybe debating this. There is that Dedenne. Is the switch in the deck? I don't think this is a play you really have to go for as Brent. The switch is there, but I mean, I think it's also pretty safe to just pass here, and you still know that you have the Boss's Orders in hand. If you use Dedenne here, you run the risk of, well, now I only have 1 Boss's Orders left in my whole deck. And so I think for that reason, we will just likely see Brent pass here.
Yeah, playing it on the safe side. You're already up 2 to 6 prizes, and you're kind of forcing the decision on Owen if they're going to be actually able to do anything or not to really affect the game.
Yeah, Brent has really just kind of left himself with a lot of great options. You might be wondering, well, why wouldn't he energy switch off the Boltund V? That's something that's probably getting KO'd this turn, and the reason for that is if Owen was to boss's orders around, bring something else up and knock it out, you leave yourself the ability to energy switch back onto that Bolton V to just a Bolt Storm again. So Brent truly just leaving themselves with all kinds of options in this next coming turn. For Owen here, Owen really does want to find the reset stamp, try to disrupt Brent a bit. We do see the Marnie, not quite a reset stamp, but will still get a little bit of hand disruption.
Yeah, it does importantly put that boss's orders to the bottom of the deck. But there we see the last switch drawn for Brent. So if a Tandem Shock play is in the cards here, Brent at least has the response.
In order to pull that off, Owen would need to find a switch here in order to make that happen. Of course, Tandem Shock only gets that boosted plus 80 damage if you moved from the bench to the active. But I guess in this spot, you don't actually even need, you don't really care about getting the paralysis off. You're already knocking out the Bolton V as it is, and we know you're not playing boss's orders because you've already played your Marnie as your supporter for the turn.
All right, well, there it is. The 80 damage does get the knockout. And now it's up to Brent if they can find the boss's orders to take the game here. If not, Owen survives yet another turn.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. I wonder here as Brent, do you go ahead and play that quick ball since you know one of your boss's orders is on the bottom of the deck?
I think you kind of have to, right?
I'm going to go ahead and Speed Lightning to start with. And we see the Crushing Hammer, we see Reset Stamp, Research, all kinds of good cards. I also wonder if Brent is okay. I mean, Brent's already in such a favorable position here.
Exactly.
All you need is basically at some point in the game to be able to find your boss's orders in the next, 2 turns. So maybe Brent would be okay just attacking into this Raichu.
Yeah, you could opt for even the paralyzation here, I think, is what Brent's going for. Hold it back, because you got to remember, that's the last switch in the deck here.
Yeah, I think we're just kind of seeing Brent try to figure out what is the ultimate safest play. You're in such a good spot, right? You don't ever want to run the risk of, making a mistake and playing yourself out of a game that you were in a winning position in.
Is there another energy switch left?
There is. Remember, Brent did save the one, but it was on the bottom of the deck still, I believe, right? From that Marnie. So is unable to draw it here, and we see Bolton in the active spot. Of course, Brent did draw the air balloon, so we could still see an attack here, but maybe a little bit of a risky play switching into the Bolton.
Well, here we got the Dedenne. I think there's 7 cards left in the deck. Needs to find that energy switch to actually take the knockout and the game here.
That's true. Yep, that also would work. Is enough energy. You run the risk if that energy switch is the bottom card. I think even if the energy switch is the bottom card of your deck, you probably never lose this game in this spot, right? So it could be worth going for, but I also understand the sentiment of not wanting to run the risk of that energy switch just being that bottom card of the deck, not being able to win the game this turn. So
Right.
Playing it safe is also okay.
Brent is debating the retreat here and opts for the safe route yet again. Retreats to that Raichu and Alolan Raichu GX and gets the Tandem Shock off. Paralyzation, 160 damage. Owen gets another turn, but needs to find a switch first and foremost here.
Yeah, and I think Brent has just played themselves into a position that they really can't lose this game, right? Your opponent doesn't have a way to win the game this turn, and based on what you have in hand currently, there's nothing, and based on your field, there's nothing your opponent can bring up with boss's orders that you would risk being decked out. Of course, there's energy switch plus the energy still in the deck, so you could move this Bolton V if it got brought up. Also, it has air balloon on it, so that works as well. After your top deck, you'll have 6 cards in deck, so the Dene can draw the entire deck, so you'll have access to every single card that you have available to you still on the next turn. So Brent has really just kind of played it safely, but wisely so, I think, putting themselves in a great position.
Yeah, and plays that Aurora Energy, discards a boss's orders, Chaotic Swell, and a Dedenne GX, trying to find the switch here. But even with the switch, does Owen have a chance to try to come back in this game?
I'm trying to think of any possible play. You do get access to a couple of unique GX attacks here. You could use the Vileplume GX's Allergic Explosion to paralyze, burn, and poison the active. You could also just go ahead and knock it out here with Mist Slash on the Greninja GX. Also, maybe Dark Mist could have been an option for Owen there, picking up the Pikachu and Zekrom on the bench, but as we know, based on this hand, Brent here has the energy and has the boss's orders and should be able to close this one out and winning a pretty convincing 2-0 game.
Yeah, and it's with the patience that Brent just portrayed there. That whole game too could have gone for the overextending play, comeback.